Hello, everyone. I am Storyteller. Thank you for visiting this peaceful place. I know you are looking for something soothing to help you fall asleep, and I am here to accompany you. If you enjoy, please give me a like and subscribe, and let me know where you are from. Thank you. The Gates of Hell. Jaxby staggered through the desert with 2 empty water jugs in his backpack. But the heat weighed him down. The protein bars were long gone, but that was just as well, because he couldn't have swallowed them anyway. He didn't have any saliva. Step by step, he began to accept that he was going to die. Buzzards circled the sky, watching their supper cook. All he had to do was lay down. His legs and feet wouldn't hold him up much longer. Soon, he thought, the landscape that hadn't changed since he began this journey was suddenly different, as something appeared ahead of him that he wasn't expecting to see. That shouldn't be there, he mused. But his painful eyes widened at the lights. They shone brighter than nighttime Reno, though it was still daytime. Mirage came to mind, but he tamped it down and staggered on. Hours earlier, Jax Isby's car had broken down on Highway 50 in the middle of Nevada. The engine light came on first. Then the radio stopped playing Hotel California. When the world whited out amidst blasts of steam from the engine, he pulled over and panicked. He'd never seen so much steam, and with it came a smell, something that smelled like jail. He wasn't going to make his court date on time. That meant jail. When the steam dissipated and he could see again, he got out and opened the hood of his 2013 Subaru. He knew nothing about cars and didn't know what he expected to see or find. But that's what people did. Perhaps he'd find a card that read, "You receive a second chance. Try again." Despite his lack of hope, he returned to the driver's seat and tried to start the car. Not even a click. There wasn't a signal on his phone, but he dialed 911 anyway. Nothing happened. Jaxby, or Jax for short, unfolded his paper map. How far back was that sign that pointed to the name of a town? Here. Since the road on the map dipped downward, then up again, he figured he was on the upside of a U. He thought it would be quicker to backtrack if he cut straight through the desert instead of keeping to the road. If he used his compass and held true, he should have no problem reaching the opposite side of the U. And besides, he had come prepared for an emergency like this. Or rather, Angelina had prepared him before he'd left her in Reno. He shouldn't have gone there to see her last night, not with this court date looming. She told him not to come, but he became suspicious. She was trying to keep him away for reasons other than his well-being. There had been no reason for his lack of faith. He'd found her alone, watching television, and she made him glad he came. He didn't tell her he'd raged out of his mind with jealousy for the entire 6-hour drive and would have bodily injured whoever he'd found her with. He had been able to hide that part of himself from her so far. Or maybe not. Maybe he'd blamed her for sleeping late. He packed the 2 one-gallon water jugs and a box of protein bars into his backpack. He placed a wide-brimmed hat on his head and wore long sleeves to protect his face and arms from the sun. There was a blanket, too, and Jax shoved it in with the other things, then started out on foot, with his sunglasses set firmly on his nose. After 2 hours, he wondered how one body could sweat so much, and his legs and feet already ached. He drank water freely, without bothering to conserve, figuring he was almost there. He had to be, when he faced the same landscape another 2 hours later. The second water gallon was more than halfway gone. He sang to keep his mind off his dilemma. Eventually, his thoughts envisioned his lawyer scowling in the air-conditioned courtroom as his client, Jaxby Johnson, never showed. The road rage offense had ended with a death and infuriated him whenever he thought about it. Mance Rayfield had started the altercation and had provoked him not once, but 4 times. 4 times, Mance had tried to run him off the road. On the 5th try, Jax outmaneuvered him, and Mance's big, bad Silverado tumbled down into a ravine. Jaxby's Dodge had followed, but he made it out with only a few scratches. Mance didn't make it out at all. He got what he deserved. As far as Jaxby was concerned, it was his lawyer who bade him to show remorse when he appeared before the judge today. Now hope lay ahead, and Jax used every last bit of his strength to get there, determined to reach the lights. He crawled his way through the last part of the journey and arrived on his knees on the road between 2 brightly lit saloons facing off from opposite sides. The road disappeared into the landscape in one direction and ended here. Despite his pain and suffering, Jax laughed at the ingenuity. One saloon glowed a white, brighter than the sun on the desert sand, and was aptly named the Pearly Gates. The other was lit with orange and blue flames. The Gates of Hell was posted on its entry. The Pearly Gates door opened, and someone came out. Jax glimpsed a room filled with people and wondered where all the cars were. Perhaps they were bussed in, and later a bus would arrive to take them back. "My name is Peter," said the man from the Pearly Gates. 2 people dressed as angels helped him up and brought him inside. "My name is Jaxby Johnson. Do you have a phone I could use? I need to call my lawyer." "We have no phones here," said Peter. "Everyone asks, though, what happens if there is an emergency?" "We have no emergencies either. Please excuse me while I get my book." Jax was given cold water and a small cake. "Angel food," said the angel that served it. Jax was feeling much better by the time Peter returned with a tome. "Read it," Peter told him. "At the end, you'll have a choice to make." Jax looked at the book, entitled Jaxby Seth Johnson, with his Earth date to the current date listed on the front. What was this? How did they know who he was? He looked for Peter, but Peter was nowhere. He opened the book. The first page brought up his first lie, the first candy bar he had stolen, the first fight he'd gotten into, and went on and on from there. He was served more cake as he read. A pitcher of water was refreshed. While the road rage incident with Mance appeared near the end, it wasn't his last offense. Angelina had tried to wake him that morning, and he'd pushed her away and told her to leave him alone. Then, later, even though she'd filled his car with emergency supplies, including the paper map and compass, he blamed her for running late and called her a foul name just before he left. It made her cry. She didn't deserve it. It was the only thing he felt remorseful about. Peter returned. Jax had 1,000 questions, but didn't get to ask them. It's only for that remorse you are feeling that I am offering 1 second chance. Heed my warning. You won't get another, so choose carefully. Follow me, he said. Jaxby followed. They stepped outside. A mountain of boulders stood before them. Peter offered a silver hammer to Jaxby, 1 stone for each of your trespasses, and 2 stones for each of Mance Rayfield's misdeeds since you took his life. Once you turn the stones to dust, you may stay here. Think carefully before you decide, for my offer comes but once. If you decide against it, we'll disappear forever, leaving you to the mercy of the gates of hell. Jax was confused. Was this a dream? A mirage? Something didn't feel right. He looked over the pile of boulders, reaching to the sky, changing them to dust with the small hammer Peter offered would take a lifetime. Who was Peter, anyway? I don't feel I should have to pay for Mance's wrongdoings. Very well, answered Peter. He took the hammer from Jax, and the world flashed out. Jax was back on the road, back on his knees. The pearly gates was gone. The gates of hell lay before him. Jax crawled forward. No one came to help him. When he pushed the door open, a crowd cheered. 2 people dressed as demons pulled him to his feet. Mance Rayfield stepped out and punched him in the face. The crowd booed. Jax punched him back. The crowd cheered, back and forth, booing and cheering. Jax was tiring. He needed to rest. You win, he said to Mance. Boo, the crowd answered. Mance hit him again. The crowd cheered. I said I give up, Jax said. The crowd booed. On and on and on. All at once, a gate appeared in Jax's peripheral vision. He edged toward it, connecting a bloody fist to Mance's bloody nose. Another step, another blow. When he was close enough, he opened the gate and raced out into the desert. A sky of stars welcomed him into the cold night. Without warning, he was back in his Subaru, singing along to Hotel California. smiling in relief, until the engine light came on and the radio stopped. The world whited out amidst blasts of steam, and Jaxby pulled over. He opened the hood, tried to start the motor, packed his 2 jugs of water and his box of protein bars. He left the blanket behind. He wouldn't need it. This time, he stuck to the road and conserved the water. Maybe a car would stop, or a bus. Hours later, lights blazed from up ahead. When his feet gave out, he crawled. A buzzard cried out from the lonely sky. Only the gates of hell remained. The pearly gates was gone. For the first time in Jaxby's existence, he felt remorse. Remorse for everything. The Adventures of Jack and Celine. Content warning. Bugs, fire, darkness. Not for the first time in his life, Jack's Sunday afternoon was saved by vintage pornography. There was a magazine in the dusty antique store, full of printed reproductions of saucy sepia scandals, and he flipped through with a schoolyard grin. "Oh my God," said Lisa. "Don't look at that, you jerk. Hey, you dragged me out to this dump, so don't complain. And I ain't jerking anything. Yet." Lisa rolled her eyes and made that "don't be gross" groan. Or maybe it was the "don't embarrass me in public" one. Whatever. I'm going to go look at armoires and pretend like we're not engaged. Love you too. Jack flipped through a few more magazines, and it struck him how natural everyone looked. No airbrushing, no Photoshop, not like it even existed back then. Their bodies simply were as they were, adequate. Did society just have much healthier ideas of body image back then? It occurred to him there could be real historical merit in formally studying this. And then he wondered how he might go about getting a grant, especially considering he wasn't a historian or any kind of researcher. Oh my God, what am I doing? He set the magazines down before he ruined porn forever. Still, if he had found this, then maybe this antique shop of Lisa's wasn't a total waste of time. He decided to take a stroll down the creaking aisles and see what else he could find. Most of it was kitsch, but when he spotted the toys and games section, his eyes widened. And then Jack spotted her, Celine the centipede, a segmented orange plush about a foot long, slumped on a shelf. Her fur was patchy, and her one remaining lacquered eye scuffed. But it was unmistakably Celine. Faded memories stirred in his mind. Long forgotten thoughts stretched. A buried history awoke. He recalled a giant bonfire with all his family there. Other people too. Maybe it was a holiday? Little 8-year-old Jack, swaying in the welcoming glow of the flames as they kept the night's chill away, belting out Camptown races, and then collapsing into a fit of giggles. And all the while, Celine safely nestled in the crook of his arm, protecting him from all the monsters that dwelled in the shadows. "Oh, wow," he said, approaching the toy shelf. I can't believe it. He didn't notice Lisa sneak up on him. "What is that gross thing?" "Her name is Celine," Jack said, stressing it. "And she is not a gross thing. She was my best friend growing up." "Aw, that's so adorable. And sad. Adorably sad. We went everywhere together. She was there for me when my parents..." Lisa hugged him. "It's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring it up. No, I'm fine. It was so long ago." Jack reached out to pick Celine up from her shelf, and Lisa slapped his hand. "Ew, don't touch it." "What the hell? You don't know where it's been. It's probably covered in all kinds of gross stains and smells and fleas." "Centipedes don't get fleas, Lisa." "Jack," she said, squeezing his arm. "It's not a real centipede. Now behave. I'm going to go arrange delivery of our new armoire, and after that, we can head down to Murphy's for a pizza and beer." Jack watched her leave, and then turned his attention back to Celine. It looked just like her, just like the one he used to have. In fact, she was even missing her third left foot from the front. "Hello, Jack," said Celine. Jack gasped. "It is you!" Was there ever any doubt? Celine coughed, and some of her fur came loose. "Are you all right? Time's been a real bitch to me. Let me tell you, Jackie boy. Speaking of which, who's the tramp?" "What, you mean Lisa?" "Hey, she's my fiancé." "Oof, condolences, buddy," Jack scoffed. "Don't say that. I love her, do you? Or does she just have your balls in her purse? I mean, what the hell is an armoire?" "I don't know." "Exactly, Jack. Nobody does. It's made up. She made it up to sound smarter than you." "That's not true." Jack heard the petulant note in his voice. Still, he couldn't help crossing his arms and sinking into himself. "You know what she sounds like to me, buddy?" Jack shook his head. "A shadow monster." Jack gulped. "No." His voice was tight. Cold memories washed over his skin. Memories of vile things that lurked in the dark, all biding their time to snatch him. Some lurked under his bed, others in the closet. The biggest one, King Grumbler, lived down in the basement of their old house, where the lone, naked light bulb never gave off enough light. Night was a time of horrors incarnate, at least until Jack met Celine. Celine protected him. She watched over him while he slept, and with her around, he actually could sleep. She showed him the light. She was the light. With her on his team, nothing could stop Jack. He felt a dull ache in his chest. Why had they ever parted ways? It must have been in the chaos after the accident, after his whole life was flipped upside down and he lost everything. "Yes," Celine said. "A shadow monster. A creepy crawly." "Don't!" "A gristly ghouly." "Stop it." "Grabby stabby!" "Stop!" Jack's shout muted the store. Celine raised her front dozen feet in surrender. Okay, calm down, Spaz. She scratched one of her rear segments. Didn't realize you felt so strongly about it. Although I guess it is pretty brave of you, marrying a shadow monster. Celine, she's not a shadow monster. It just occurred to Jack how much crap was in this antique store, and how weak the lights were. Everywhere he looked, there were dark nooks and umbral crannies. A life-sized suit of knight's armor cast a long shadow down a narrow corridor. But the suit was also big enough to hide at least 3 monsters, if they were real, of course. Jack shook his head. He wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. He'd outgrown it. I don't know what you see in her anyway. I always thought we were better together. We even have a ready-made couple's name. Celiac. Did you just ship us? And what the hell, Celine? Why would you go with Celiac instead of the obvious Jacqueline? Oh, Jacqueline. Celine weathered another coughing fit. You're right. That's pretty. I like it. So, we're agreed then? You're gonna dump the chump and roll with me? What? Drop the slop. Ditch the bitch. Punt the cup. Celine, what has gotten into you? She wasn't always like this, was she? It used to be all fuzzy hugs and warm giggles, and whispering secrets to each other long into the night. For all of his worries and all of his fears, she always had an answer. She'd been just what a frightened, lonely 8-year-old needed. But Jack wasn't a child anymore. I'm not leaving Lisa. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And that's a fact. Celine drew herself up. Unbelievable. Crossed dozens of feet. After all I've done for you. She shook her head at her neighbors on the toy shelf. I should have expected it. The shadow apple doesn't fall far from the shadow tree, it seems. What's that supposed to mean? Your parents were the biggest shadow monsters of all. That's not true. Come on, Jackie boy. It's your bedtime. No snacking before dinner. Brush your teeth, young man. They were insane. They were. Jack gulped. His memories of his parents were few and far between, but he knew they were good people. Weren't they? All those things, they just sounded like regular parent things. Celine leaned forward and clapped her feet. Oh my God, you don't remember, do you? Remember what? All I remember is, you used to be nice. Like that time we had a big bonfire with all the neighbors, and we got to stay up way after bedtime, and we sang Camptown races and laughed, and that nice lady gave me an apple juice. Nice lady? That was a paramedic, you dumbass. What? Come on, remember. Celine started humming Camptown races. Jack remembered working on a project earlier in the evening. Lots of papers, shredded papers, papier-mâché. That must have been it. An art project to show his parents how much he loved them. Only, in his memories, he was scattering the papers all around the house. Celine cleared her throat with another cough and began singing. grab a lighter and some gas. Doo-dah, doo-dah. Kill the shadows with some flame. Oh, dee-doo-dah-day, Jack remembered. With Celine clutched under one arm and the other arm dragging a gas can all over the neighborhood, he belted the lyrics out at the top of his lungs. She provided harmony. She told him where to go, how to arrange things, and when everything was ready, start your lighter, Jackie love, and give the gas a little kiss. Within seconds, 6 cookie-cutter houses erupted in a huge fireball that rose into the sky, and when bright-hot figures ran out of the conflagration, waving their arms in the air and screaming, Celine told him those were just the shadow monsters. They saw his work, and they had a change of heart. And now they were dancing and singing and happy and bright. And so Jack sang louder too, and he danced with Celine, and he danced much longer than the silly shadow people who got tired real quick and laid down to sleep. Jack screamed. "Aw, you remembered," Celine said. "'Bout damn time, my little pyro," Jack screamed more. "You have no idea how bored I've been since they took you away from me." Jack took a deep breath and continued screaming. "Come on, Jack. Let's go murder some folk. Just like the good old days." Jack continued screaming. Blam! A thundering blast right beside Jack. He fell into trembling silence. An old man in thick, square glasses stood right beside him and lowered a shotgun. Little remained of Celine's shelf, other than scorched wood and a smear of orange fluff. "Ah, dang it," said the old man. "You know, I put up a sign, but people don't read. Keep donating their haunted toys and cursed dolls and whatnot. Oh well, so you're fine to deliver it on Wednesday?" Lisa asked. "Yes, ma'am. You can count on it. That's a lovely armoire, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it for a long time." He shook Lisa's hand and then departed. "Well," Lisa said, entwining her arm with Jack's shivering one, "I told you that thing was gross. Anyway, guess we're lucky he was nice enough not to charge us for it. Now come on, let's go get that beer and pizza. Speed. Fate. Hi, Buck. Thanks for taking part in the recent Speed Fate speed dating event and submitting your feedback. We hope you enjoyed the evening. Please find below a copy of the comments you left for each of your dates. You will receive feedback submitted about you in a separate mail. Should any of those you said yes to also say yes to you, we will forward each of you a copy of your contact information so you can get in touch. The very best of luck, and thanks for choosing Speed Fate. The Speed Fate team. Buck Tucker dated the following people: 18th July 2023, and left the following feedback. Mandy Rogers, age 37, self-help guru. You said, "Fun person. Quick smile, bubbly." The conversation flowed from the get-go. Love the curls. She had so much to say, and was passionate about her interests, even if they were a bit airy-fairy. If there's one thing I respect, it's passion about your subject of choice. Refreshing to meet someone as firm a believer in destiny as Mandy is. Could talk to her for hours about sliding doors and parallel universes. Would love to delve deeper into her thoughts on escapable fate. Great date. Would you like to meet Mandy again? Yes. Evelyn Pierce, age 35. School teacher. You said, Evelyn is a dark horse. Shy to start, but relaxed as the date went on. I was nervous too, because she's very smart. I felt dumb by comparison. Very impressed by her career. She seems to be a great teacher. Very professional. I get the impression she could be successful at anything she turns her hand to, even partnering with me. She has the voice of authority. It just needs to be strengthened. She could broaden my horizons on intellectual topics, and I could teach her about life outside the classroom. Definitely see potential here. Would you like to meet Evelyn again? Yes, Katerina Cruz, age 38, physical therapist. You said. Not much to say about Katerina, except wow. I didn't know drop dead gorgeous was an actual thing, but as soon as I left her table, I felt part of me die, or at least abandon ship so it could stay behind. Her eyes really drew me in. Could get lost in them for hours. Not to mention everything else. Her English isn't great, but that didn't matter. Her body language did the talking. Can tell she doesn't take shit from anyone. And with those muscles, you wouldn't want to forget her birthday. Bit intimidating, but that's a turn on. So it's a yes from me. Would you like to meet Katerina again? Yes. Ashley Davenport, age 41, office admin. You said, Ashley is a bit mousy. Not my type physically, but has an air of mystery about her, which is attractive. Not sure why she was at the event. She was an ice queen, and I had to work hard to make conversation. Wasn't very successful. Didn't find out much about her, other than that she has cats and works in admin. I'm not a cat person, but I have a dog who hates cats, so he would probably chase them off if we got together. Pretty sure she just had her walls up. I have a feeling I could get her to loosen up. I am 100% sure it would be worth it. It would be nice to see her show some emotion. Challenge accepted. Would you like to meet Ashley again? Yes. To Buck Tucker from Speed Fate Team. Date 19th July 2023, 16:31. Subject: Your speed. Fate. Feedback. Hi Buck. Thanks again for attending the recent Speed Fate speed dating event. We have now compiled the feedback we received from the people you met and have included it below. You will receive the contact information for anyone who said yes, that you said yes to also, in a separate mail, the best of luck, and thanks for choosing Speed Fate. The Speed Fate team, Mandy Rogers, age 37, yoga teacher. They said, Buck was a pleasure to talk with. Very open-minded, and I didn't get the impression he was humoring me when I was rattling on about chakras and meditation. He seemed to be genuinely fascinated. It was interesting hearing his views on the afterlife and reincarnation. He carries a lot of nomadic energy and seems to be as much of a free spirit as I am, even if yoga and mindfulness aren't his thing. Would definitely like to bounce more ideas off him. I promised him a tarot reading if we meet again. So here's hoping. Would they like to meet you again? They said, yes, Evelyn Pierce, age 35, school teacher. They said, Buck is great. He's a lot more adventurous than me, very extrovert, which is exciting. I need someone like that to get me out of my comfort zone. Raising 2 teenagers as a full-time single dad is not an easy task, so I take my hat off to him. Also impressed by his role as a part-time scout leader, setting time aside to take kids camping and teach them about the great outdoors. That's inspirational. Would definitely be interested in getting to know him better. Always a sucker for a good dad. Would they like to meet you again? They said, yes, Katerina Cruz, age 38, physical therapist. They said, Buck is interesting, man. Similar interest in keep fit, training for marathon. Now, I think he has a lot of work to do, but is good. He has goal to work for. Perhaps he needs some help training. Little out of shape. But I don't have heart to say. Cute smile, kind eyes, love-bearded man. Also interested in his musical career. Must be nice to date with guitarist of upcoming rock band. I think I should like to see this. Would they like to meet you again? They said, yes. Ashley Davenport, age 41, office admin. They said, God loves a trier. I gave him nothing, but he kept on trucking. Bonus points for that. If I was him, I would have given up in the first minute, like everyone else. 5 must have been torture. Really hate this shit. Only did it 'cause my friends signed me up, and I never would have heard the end of it. Whatever. Promise I'll make more of an effort next time. Not that he's going to want to meet me again. He'd probably sooner throw himself under a bus. Would they like to meet you again? They said, yes, 2. Buck. Tucker from Fate. Team. Date. 20th July, 2023, 11:30. Subject, your speed. Fate. Contacts. Hi, Buck. Please find attached contact information for your matches from the speed date event you attended on July 16th, 2023. We hope you had an enjoyable experience and have our fingers crossed. One of your matches will be the one. We've had a number of success stories to date. some leading to marriage, and are always interested in hearing how things go. The best of luck, and thanks for choosing Speed Fate. The Speed Fate team, dressed in his least shabby suit, well-worn blue check shirt, newly bought navy tie, and doused in the least repulsive knockoff Hugo Boss aftershave he could find. Tucker drew a well-practiced smile onto his goatee-framed jaw and slid into the seat opposite his date, the redhead in the white dress, whose hair was tied back in a hastily knotted ponytail and whose name was displayed on the sticker attached to her chest. "Evelyn," he announced, clasping his hands together and placing his elbows on the table. "So good to see you. I was delighted to hear you wanted to meet me again. I felt we had a good connection, even though we only talked for 5 minutes. How have you been? How are those school kids? Hope they've been listening to teacher," across the white-clothed tabletop, past the bottle of champagne chilling in a stainless steel cooler, 2 sparkling champagne flutes, and the candle protruding from a chrome holder. Evelyn met Tucker's gaze and swallowed the lump of saliva that had stuck in her throat. He hadn't thought it possible for her to be more nervous than she'd been at the speed date, especially since they knew each other now. But there she was, eyes darting about, glancing at the people either side of them, beads of sweat visible on her brow. It was going to be harder than he thought to get her to loosen up, he realized. But that didn't matter. In a way, he found her nervousness endearing. "They're fine," she said, her voice coming out a whisper, forcing her to clear her throat. "They're good. They don't give me trouble. I never have to reprimand anyone." "Really? There's not a single troublemaker in the bunch? What age did you say they were?" Tucker reached forward abruptly, suit sleeve riding up his arm, and closed his hand around the neck of the champagne bottle, causing Evelyn to jump, eyes darting to his unclean fingers. 14, she said, returning her eyes to his as he took the bottle from the cooler and started undoing the wire holding its cork in place. "And 15? No, honestly, nothing like that. I've never had to punish anyone, if that's what you mean." "I see," Tucker said, narrowing his eyes as if to peer into her mind. "Bit boring, isn't it? All that authority, and there's not a single obnoxious teenager for you to use it on? I find that hard to believe. As a former teenager in a school full of stuck-up bitches and bullying brats, I find that extremely hard to believe. But hey, if that's what you're saying, pop!" The cork shot from the bottle with explosive energy, making the nervous teacher jump again. "I'll take your word for it. How about your colleagues? They all super nice, too?" "Come on, you can be honest. Bet there's a couple of real shits, right? Get off on tormenting the kids? Probably a few pervs, too. Pedo bastards? I know there were at my school. Oh, I know. Can think of at least 3 motherfuckers who deserved to have their dicks cut off, sitting forward, extending his arm, pouring bubbly liquid into his date's glass. He glared as she shook her head softly, almost imperceptibly, and sucked in her lips. He snorted, smiled, a shake of the head as he finished pouring, and moved the bottle to his own glass. You don't have to be so nervous, Evelyn. It's just me and you. You can tell me anything. I'm very open-minded, a man of the world. I know the way things work. I'm familiar with what goes on behind closed doors. In response to his comment about it being just him and her eyes had flicked to the left and right again, almost as if to remind herself there were people around them, though it shouldn't have been necessary, considering how boisterous they were. Don't worry about them, Tucker said, depositing the champagne bottle back into the cooler with a clatter and crunch. What we talk about is none of their business, and vice versa. Let's just focus on getting to know each other. He lifted his glass, took a sip, let the bubbles pop in his mouth and tickle his throat. Effervescent. Evelyn watched him return the glass to the table with dampening eyes and quivering lip, bubbles spinning in the amber liquid in the untouched glass before her. So you're not a mean teacher, and you have no asshole students, and everyone you work with is lovely. Okay, I get it. They've conditioned you well. Turning a blind eye is second nature. That's okay. That can be fixed. You just have to open your eyes, see things for what they are. Identify the evil in people. Acknowledge it. Accept that it's there to be destroyed. And do you know the best way to do that? He crossed his arms, lifted an eyebrow, cocked his head. And no, she said, the first tear escaping an eye and running down a scratched, grime-covered cheek. I don't. Buck, you know, I think you got the wrong impression of me. I'm not a bad person. I treat people well. I don't. The best way to do that. He cut her off, craning his head closer to hers, his nose almost touching the trembling candle flame, is to find it in yourself and expose it. Draw it out into the light, like a putrid, rotting vampire. Set it free and watch the havoc it wreaks. Once you know what your own darkness is capable of, you'll be able to recognize it in others. And then you'll be able to do something about it. Like me. It's simple, really. So come on, let's go on a journey of self-discovery. Aren't you drinking? Please, Buck. I don't think I'm what you're looking for. I think we should... Have you ever cheated on someone, Evelyn? Deliberately or accidentally, thinking it was okay because, you know, it wasn't that serious and they weren't invested. No, I never. Have you ever lied to someone to let them down gently, or just because you wanted some attention, to be wined and dined, treated like a princess, to pass the time? Buck, I want to stop, please. Have you ever hit anyone? A sibling? A child? Have you ever lost your cool and lashed out blindly with a hand or a foot? Hurt someone out of anger or desire? Please, so you don't use your authority to punish students. How about something else? Have you seduced one? All those virile young teenagers staring you up and down. Have you ever taken advantage of it? Tasted forbidden fruit? Or maybe not them, maybe one of their parents, maybe a bit of home-wrecking sates an urge. I don't know why you're doing this. I don't know what kind of person you think I am, but I'm not. Have you ever thought about killing someone, Evelyn? Pulling a cord tight around their neck and watching them choke, sticking a knife in their guts and twisting it, enjoying the warmth of the warm, sticky blood that... Jesus, God, somebody help me, please, somebody help me. She screamed, she stomped, she shook, she howled and yelled and roared. Teardrops flew from her eyes, but nobody helped. "Oh, Evelyn," said Tucker, after allowing her a moment. "I had a good feeling about you. I thought if I could get you to see the light and come around to my way of thinking, we'd have fun expelling assholes from the world. But it's not going to happen, is it?" She continued to scream, wrenching and twisting in the chair she was tied to. So he shrugged and took hold of the candle, slid it from its holder, revealed the blade that protruded from its base. The teacher's eyes went wide, and her voice cracked as he angled it towards her throat, leaned further forward, and swiped left. A second mouth fell open in the smooth, pale skin of her throat, and she gasped, gurgled, thrashing more urgently as a spine-chilling groan crept from her soul. Tucker sat back and watched. No glee showed on his face. No excitement. He watched blankly. The knife held loose, the thin layer of blood on its blade, sprinkling scarlet splashes on the tablecloth. If there was an air about him at all, as his second hope for a partner fizzled out, it was one of disappointment. He really would have liked her as a soulmate. After a minute, when Evelyn stopped twitching, he checked to ensure his shirt and jacket hadn't been soiled, then slid the candle knife back into its holder, licked his forefinger, extinguished the candle's flame, pushed his chair back, and got up. He took a napkin from the table, dabbed at his mouth as he stepped back, watching his scuffed loafers, careful not to step into the blood that had pooled beneath the chair behind him, the blood that had oozed from boring, not mysterious Ashley. To his left, bound and gagged, Katerina lunged her upper body towards him, impressive arm muscles bulging through the gossamer thin material of the dress he'd clad her in, brown eyes glowering with hate, teeth gnashing behind the black rubber strap that subdued her mouth. The chair was bolted to the floor. Her feet were chained to the chair. Her movement was restricted. He wasn't ready for her yet. A fist to the face, she slumped, head lolling loosely over her chest, to the right of the teacher, in the center of a long, abandoned warehouse. Another dressed table, another pair of chairs, and terrified captive. A puddle of urine, not blood. On the floor around her feet, Tucker fished a lighter from his pocket. As he stepped around the corpse of bleeding Evelyn, lit the wick of the candle dagger protruding from chrome scabbard. Lighter, back in pocket, he took hold of the rubber gag around the girl's head, pulled it off, relishing the snap as it came loose. "Please," she said, all wild, rabbit eyes and mascara-smeared face. "Don't hurt me. I'll do anything. I promise. Anything." He drew a well-practiced smile onto his goatee-framed jaw and slid into the seat opposite his date, the blonde in the ivory-white dress, whose curls hung loose around her face, and whose name was displayed on a sticker. "Mandy," he announced, spreading his hands to greet her and bowing theatrically. "So good to see you. I was delighted to hear you wanted to meet me again. I believe you had some thoughts on escapable fate. Red rum." "Cut!" Leonard shouted, snapping the movie slate shut, dizzy with the relief that comes after the end of a shoot. "Thanks so much, Francis. You're good to go." "No, thank you, Lenny," Francis Keaton replied, shaking Leonard's hand. "I hope we meet again." "Me too. Good luck with your Nespresso adverts." "Where's Liliana?" Leonard called out to Travis, who shrugged his shoulders. "Travis, you reek of whiskey. It's called method acting. I had to do it all the time for Streetcar." "Ah, there you are." Liliana Hoyt, who seemed to be winning every acting award going, was grabbed by Leonard and manhandled by two of the producers onto the set. "Hey!" she screamed. "Get off me!" "You could have dressed up," Leonard said, as Liliana got thrown onto the bed. "Actually, it's fine. Just pull the comforter over her." One of the producers threw some rope around her hands before tying them to the headboard. "Leonard, what the fuck is going on? Where's Margot?" "What about her?" The same producer silenced Liliana, her face bluing in mute appeal with a strip of duct tape. Suddenly, her legs were flailing, writhing, kicking, helpless in the face of the director's conspiratorial will. And action. An unsteady Travis walked onto set, holding a chainsaw, its roar drowning out Liliana's muffled howls. Where its teeth kissed her leg, blood, first a trickle, and then a surge, began to mist the whole set. "Travis, stop!" Margot Devine, the actress who had claimed the starring role, walked in at that very moment. "Is everything okay?" Liliana called me about an extra scene. She clapped her hands to her face in horror once she saw Liliana's dismembered limbs. "Oh my God, please, detective. I don't want to watch it anymore," pleaded Leonard, turning his head away from the footage. Detective Montrose switched the computer off before turning his attention back to Leonard, whose face was still blank with anxiety. "You do know how this looks, don't you, Mr. Leary?" Montrose said. "Yes, of course I do. I mean, it's there, on screen, for all to see. You directing Mr. Waterman to saw Ms. Hoyt in half. It was a prop. Okay. Montrose wrote this down. And this was for your movie, was it? Yes. A prison without walls? Yes, Leonard replied begrudgingly. You know, it took 2 weeks at a writing camp in Prague to come up with that. For a moment, Leonard felt it was just him and the detective at the center of the universe, the tape recorder and folders props, and the light bulb swinging pendulum-like above, illuminating the room with an unwelcome light, only there for an added theatrical frisson. Mr. Leary, I'm confused, to say the least, Montrose said. Not one of you has a motive against Ms. Hoyt. Can we please just rewind, going back from Ms. Hoyt's death to the day you started? What, again? Please? If you wouldn't mind. 24th October, 3 weeks into filming, after 10 seconds of looking furiously for Travis, I found him perched on the banquet in the corner, his arms and legs splayed across the leather. It reminded of that scene in Pulp Fiction when Pumpkin and Honey Bunny ransack the diner. Travis fit the aesthetic perfectly. Even though he was a star of the stage, he could well have been a vagrant. Sorry, I was hungry, he said, like a naughty kid, with a chocolate mustache and a half-eaten banana split in front of him. Would you like anything? No, I'm fine. I can't stay long. Travis's hair was incredibly greasy, striking that unfortunate balance between being neither curly nor straight. Jesus, your breath reeks, Travis. The scent was a mix of red wine, cheroots, and patchouli, all rolled into one. Anyway, I think you know why I'm here. Do I? Yes, Travis, you do. It's about your wife, Margot. I don't have a wife. Oh my God. In the movie, Travis. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Margot and James McClane, played by Liliana and Travis, began life as a vision of cold, jodhpur-wearing elitism. But when they went bankrupt, were forced to downsize and move across from the Feldmans, whose marriage they ended up shattering. Liliana dropped quite the bomb the other day, I continued. Travis furrowed his eyebrows. Sorry, who? Liliana. She plays your wife, Travis. Jesus Christ. Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't get involved with the other actors. Holding my nose so as not to inhale any more alcohol breath, I tried one more time to get through to him. Liliana wondered if you, as her husband, would kill her in the script. You're the cuckolded alcoholic in the marriage, so it's completely plausible. Oh, that's fine, Travis said, the red wine talking. Really? It would require you to film some extra scenes. Are you available next week? Yes. Great. Thanks. I gave him a slap on the shoulder. She says it's because she doesn't want any trouble, but she wants to be a main character. Audiences love murder. I think that's the problem with movies these days. You don't have to explain yourself, Travis reassured me. Let's kill this bitch. 22nd October. My muscles coiled as soon as I caught sight of her. Liliana, who I am pretty sure was my least favorite, which was no mean feat, had called me unexpectedly to run through some things. And I got the feeling it wasn't to discuss the movie. It never is. The restaurant we had agreed to meet in was an upscale eatery on the fringes of the town center, the sort of place reserved for illicit liaisons and big ultimatums. I knew Liliana spent all her time as an actress, if she wasn't wielding an arc on the silver screen, in places like these, possessing the sought-after elixir that wangles 14-course taster, meals and corners tuxedos businessmen into the nooks of dingy bars. "Thanks for agreeing to this, Leonard," she said, in her native southern twang, her brazen authenticity chording a jarring note against the coy contentment of the restaurant. Liliana was rakish and spidery, her face so pale as though made of reconstituted porcelain, the cruel origami of her arms stretched to hug me. "No, really. Thank you. Have you ordered?" "I haven't." "Great," she said, perusing the menu. "You know, I haven't got long, Liliana. I have to dash It's Lily." "And what do you mean you have to dash? You're such a bad liar." "What?" "Let's see how convincingly you can lie about where you were last week, when you saw me and Margot having a go at each other." She picked up the knife, as though she was poised to dissect me. "Why are you looking so worried?" The waiter arrived, absolving me of this question. He took our orders, looking askance at Liliana as he did so, probably surprised at how underdressed she was. He would be right. It was clear Liliana didn't fit in here. It came to herald a changing of the guard. No longer were places like these populated by the jewel-draped dames who held an ice-bedded coupe in one palm of their hand and the piqued interest of their stupid director in the other, but now overhauled by a new generation, one of them being Liliana, a raven-haired, new-age Janet Lee. "I'll try and be quick," she said, sipping her wine. "But Margot Devine, fucking Margot Devine, is not a subject I can discuss without completely going batshit crazy. I hope you understand." "I don't know what you mean, Liliana." "Oh, drop the act, Leonard. You know exactly what I mean." "What?" "You saw us. I saw you. Saw us." "What?" "Oh my God, don't even try to." "When we stopped filming, me and Margot went to..." "And you, I don't know what you're..." "Look, I don't care. I know you're lying. All I wanted to tell you is that I know you. I've met directors like you before. A zillion of them." This was a lie. Liliana's showreel was suspiciously short. "And I know what gets people like you going," she continued. I stared at her with my eyes wide open, loudly glugging my wine, so the silence she left was even more pronounced. "Money," she explained, as though this wasn't obvious. "Of course it's money, right? And what's that gotta do with Margot?" "Haha, it has everything to do with Margot." Liliana leaned in, her breath hot on my cheek. "I didn't want to have to tell you this. Obviously, I didn't. Not even my mom knows. But Margot and I, We had a thing some years ago. Liliana bit her lip defiantly, numb with inexpressible loathing. I don't think you can call it a thing, to be honest. But Twitter will have different ideas. It didn't even last a year. I have to say, I'm surprised. I improvised, hiding my face with my glass. Margot's a big star. Exactly. Margot Devine, darling of the acting world, splashed all over the front pages because she's been having an affair with another woman. And not just any woman. The next Neve Campbell, of course. Liliana, I don't. You know who'll come out of this the worst, Leonard. Not me. No. Not even Margot. But you. No one will watch your movie. No one will care. No one will ever want to hire you again. The prospect, although shocking, yet entirely plausible, was a terrifying one. What are you suggesting? I asked. Look, I know this is gonna sound mad, because I know we're so late into the shoot. And I know how hard you've worked on the script. But how about we kill Margot's character off? I just think this is what the script needs. So you want to kill Margot off? Yes. You can give her a big send-off if you like. But I just don't think Margot belongs in this movie. Okay, I said, summoning the waiter for more wine. I'll see what I can do. 14th of October, 2 weeks into filming, I had known these people for just over a month. And I already knew that they were the worst people I had ever met. Margot was a man-hating sociopath. Liliana was a man-eating snake. Travis was a narcissistic man-child. And Francis was simply a very annoying man. Lenny, you with us? Francis called out. I've got to go in 20 minutes. Can we wrap this up, please? Sure. I made my way back to the studio. The custom-made house for the movie, inhabited by Grace and Roger Feldman, played by Margot Devine and Francis Keaton, respectively, was gorgeously uniform and pastel. Something even Martha Stewart would be proud of. Their marriage was literally like something from a TV commercial. Something rehearsed, shot, and then left in a studio. Something always destined for the snap of a director's slate. It was so hollow, so unreal, that someone could scrawl over it with a black marker pen, and no one would notice. The Feldmans lived in a world full of Minnie and Roman Castevets, where everything was dystopian and rabid bunny happy, where apples seemed to pick themselves, where lawnmowers began without prompt, and where babies slept without protest. And that's a wrap, I announce, weak with relief. I'll see you guys tomorrow, okay? In what was my only break of the day, I go for a cigarette and watch the world go by. The town, a mass of either failing or fledgling shops, of laundromats and fried chicken, was a buckle in the belt of dusty, apple-knocking America. A montage of sandy browns and russet reds that quite happily elided into one long sepia smudge. And then a shout, a scream, something that threatened to disrupt the even tenor of my walk. "Just leave me alone," they spat, the voice emanating from a woman's head in the distance. "What do you expect me to do?" the blonde girl replied. I inched forward before doubling back when I realized who they were. Margot and Liliana. "Look, I know neither of us could have foreseen this," Liliana said. "But I don't want you trying to talk to me in front of everyone, okay? I think it's fine, Lily." Getting the feeling this conversation wasn't something I should be hearing, I backed up against the wall and bowed my head. Everything had seemed so civil on set up until now. Then again, it was to be expected. Actors could behave like little children. "No, it's not fine, Margot," continued Liliana, spitting fury. "And to make matters worse, they've given me the same fucking name as you. That'll be all over TMZ when they find out about us. Lily, please, do not touch me. Honestly, I swear to God. After we do this, if you come near me again, then I will call the police. Leave me alone." 9th September, the table read. I hated an ensemble cast. This time, luckily, I only had to contend with 4 different personalities. But it was the personalities that was the difficult bit. The 4 elected professionals, the starlet, the treader of boards, the scream queen, and the smarmy one you see on Nespresso adverts, were due at lunchtime, a pretext to pick at finger food and bitch about the agent they all once had in common. It was when I finished putting the food and drinks together that Margot Devine, the first to try my smorgasbord of bread rolls and oil dips, decided to arrive. With her eyes in some sort of half squint, forever suspicious of any gathering of men or any errant camera, Margot had her hair scraped back into a lick of blonde and was wearing an outsize puffer jacket. I pictured her getting bundled into a Land Rover by her press agent, the jacket pulled over her shoulder blades with pincered fingers, moving as fast as her praying mantis legs would permit, like a Weinstein protege whose daily intake amounted to nothing more than an iceberg lettuce leaf and a cube of blue cheese. "Margot, hi." I greeted her awkwardly, kissing her on both cheeks, feeling the shocking realness of her bones. "There's someone in the elevator coming up," she said, upturning her nose. "I'm not sure he's a part of this. I think he's the one who does the Nespresso adverts." "Francis Keaton? Oh yes, that's the one." "Ah," I said, sawing Francis at the door. Speak of the devil. First shooting to international fame in his early 20s, much in the same mold as Leonardo DiCaprio. Francis Keaton was the nation's sweetheart. With orange skin and one remaining tuft of hair, he was clearly still clinging onto the vestiges of youth. But as he was Francis Delano Keaton, the perfect riposte to any insult, he was most definitely forgiven. One dimply smile from his much-pinched cheek, and you would just swoon. "So, Who else we waiting for then? He asked in his frothy drawl. Just two more. Who are they? It's not Meryl Streep, is it? No, not Meryl, unfortunately. It's Travis Waterman and Liliana Hoyt. Ah, Liliana, the woman of the moment. Liliana's coming? Margot asked, tweaking her sleeve. Yes. Oh? Is there a problem? Oh no. We just haven't seen each other since the whole cabin in the woods debacle. Oh yes, Francis laughed. Right, bloodbath, wasn't it? Ah, I beamed, breaking the awkward silence that came thereafter. I think that's them now. With an A-list swagger she could only mimic, Liliana Hoyt entered at that exact moment beside Travis Waterman. Liliana, making her name through low-budget art house movies, could not be more different from Travis, who was securely established as the doyen of theater, earning his first Tony nomination for his performance in Othello. I wondered how they would react when they would learn that they were going to be playing a married couple. Which reminded me, the script I would have them read, written by myself of course, was tentatively titled A Prison Without Walls. It was about a married couple in the 1950s, the sort to hold Tupperware parties and send their children to elocution lessons, who find themselves reevaluating their priorities when a new couple moves in across the road. Hello, Leonard. Good to see you again. We had never met before. Good evening, Travis, I said, showing them to their seats. The five of us arranged ourselves in the most curious of configurations, with Margot and Travis at one end, and Francis and Liliana at the other. So, I hope everyone's got the right script, I said, taking charge. Yes, Travis responded, remarkably quick for someone who had all the zeal of a narcoleptic. But it says here, my character's an alcoholic. Is that... No. James falls off a wagon when he learns his wife, played by Liliana, is cheating on him. Is that? Yep, it was an awkward subject. Everyone knew Travis was an alcoholic ever since his stint in Cat on a hot tin roof. At least it's not me doing the cheating, Francis quipped. Actually, you are, I corrected. Roger cheats on his wife with Liliana's character. No one thought it appropriate to respond. TMZ had a helicopter above Keaton's mansion for months after he ordered a prostitute to his home while his wife was on vacation. Liliana craned forward, opening her mouth to speak. Leonard, it says here my character's called Margot. Margot. Yes, it's spelled differently. Well, I hope you don't confuse us, Margot interjected. Everyone shot a sideways glance at Margot sulking in the corner. So, I said, slapping my knees. Shall we begin? It was finally time. We all took a sharp intake of breath before turning the first page. Francis was still smiling. Liliana was still staring at me. Travis was still dwelling on his character arc. And Margot was left to quietly fume about the fact that her namesake was played by her archenemy, the care and feeding of monsters. Via Sol looked around the mansion with distaste. She didn't like being here, and she certainly didn't like what she had heard about the monster who used to live here. Not that she put much credence in the old tales that some of the more senior members of the Lollipop Guild talked about. Those wizened relics of the past had many tales to tell. All the stories outrageous, and all the events sounding just a little too fantastic to believe. Via poked around the foyer and the living area, marveling at the size of the place and grimacing at the thick coat of grime and dust that covered every surface. She had drawn back every curtain on the ground floor, yet the area remained dark and suffocating. Curious, the high, vaulted ceilings spiraled upwards, seemingly without end, but the claustrophobic feeling stayed. The ancient wood creaked and groaned with every step she took, voicing its complaint in sonorous, funereal tones. She wanted to leave right now, but she had a prospective client. This place had been on the books for over 100 years, and getting it sold would be a major coup for her. She had visions of a corner office and a hefty bonus. The realtor overcame her fears and waited. But she waited outside, a wicked witch indeed. What ridiculous tripe! Franklin Baumgartner looked around the mansion. Via thought his eyes looked dead, but, she reasoned, that could be the effect of the poor light in the mansion. His assistant, a Miss Holcomb, also had a lifeless look about her. Their size bothered Via. The man towered over everyone in the land, standing almost 6 feet tall. The woman was a giant as well. Their attire was odd, and their actions startling. "Miss Holcomb, take some notes," Baumgartner snapped. Miss Holcomb dutifully took out a notepad and readied herself for the onslaught to come. Replace the windows, double-paned, insulated with argon gas. Make that triple-paned, American-made. Always buy American-made, Miss Holcomb. None of that Chinese shit. Get some people in here to reinforce the floorboards. They squeak like a bitchy wife. Cleaning crew. Make that cruise. American cruise? Miss Holcomb pushed her glasses back on her face and peered up at her boss. "No, hire the illegals that come over here. They'll work cheap and do a good job. Remember, Miss Holcomb, buy American, hire foreign." "Got it, sir," Miss Holcomb said. She wrote rapidly and then paused, waiting for more. "Contact Kate Mueller in Chicago. Have her come in and furnish this place. Spare no expense. It's a fucking mausoleum right now. Get Halliburton to give me a call. I hear wolves out there. He's good at killing things. Gardeners, of course. Lots of them. The land has gone to hell. Oh, and I saw some beehives out there. Find me a beekeeper. If the bees aren't producing honey, we'll exterminate 'em. The roof needs to be checked." Baumgartner went on like this for some time. Miss Holcomb wrote furiously, nodding occasionally, and staying 6 feet behind her employer. Via Saul didn't show it, but she was confused and alarmed. She had never heard of the places mentioned. America, Canada, Chicago. The man also used language that was unfamiliar to her, especially the word beginning with a foo sound, or bitchy. Maybe it's their way of saying itchy. And maybe the foo word is a term of endearment. Via was snapped out of her reverie by Baumgartner's stentorian voice. "Miss Soul? Hey, you still with us?" Via looked up and almost stood at attention. "Of course, yes. So, the price? You have it listed as 133 lollipops. That must be a typo." Baumgartner frowned at her. He didn't approve of sloppy work. "No, sir, that's the price. But we can negotiate." "Lollipops?" "Yes, sir. I'm assuming that you can pay in lollipops." "Hell no, missy. We use good old American dollars. The best currency in the world, I'll have you know." "Lollipops? What the hell kind of lollipop do you require? Are they lined with gold?" Well, no. That is, they're just lollipops." Baumgartner looked at his assistant impassively. He blinked and shook his head. Miss Holcomb waited patiently for something to write down. "Show me," Baumgartner said. Via nodded, confused as to why someone needed to see what was widely considered the coin of the realm. She went outside to her horse and buggy, retrieving a couple of lollipops. She went back inside the mansion, not easy in her mind. Baumgartner stared at them for some time. He inspected them closely, twirled them in his fingers, and even sniffed them. He handed one to Miss Holcomb, who mimicked her boss's actions. "Am I to understand that these lollipops are made with sugar?" "Nothing else. Just sugar and some natural coloring, I think." "I'm not sure. The Lollipop Guild makes them, and they guard their secrets carefully." Baumgartner nodded. Although confused by the method of payment, he didn't hesitate to take advantage of the situation. "What'll you take for these lollipops? Cash? Goods?" Baumgartner eyed Via closely, noting her body language. He was successful in part because of his ability to read people. "Well, I was going to purchase some new clothes after work. Food for the winter. Grain for the horse," Via said. She was nervous. The conversation about money bothered her. No one talked about money here. No one at all. Baumgartner considered what the realtor said. He whispered to his assistant. She nodded lightly and wrote something down on her notepad. "Tell you what, Miss Soul, I'll bring you a new horse when I come back, if you give me one of these." Via gasped. A new horse would normally cost 7 lollipops. She tried to keep her composure. The man is an idiot. "However, I could use a new horse. Poor old Rusty is getting old. And maybe I could get a little more out of this dolt. A new horse is acceptable, but I think I'd want a little more. Maybe throw in 100 kilos of grain for the new horse." Baumgartner accepted quickly. The woman's a dolt. selling this place for 133 lollipops, and all she wants is a new horse and some feed. Jesus, this is gonna be easy. We'll be back next week. Have the papers ready to sign. I'll have the, payment in full, Baumgartner said. He didn't even try to haggle over the price. He was starting to love this exchange rate. Baumgartner was as good as his word. He paid for the mansion and bought Via a new horse, along with supplying her with an impressive amount of grain for the horse. Still, Via was disturbed. The stranger found his way to her homeland. There were tales about a farm girl who had done this, but that was nothing more than a story that the old ones told. Baumgartner was indeed from another land, Kansas. His Aunt Elle had given him what was left of the family farm, and he sold it quickly, at a ridiculously low price. His aunt was dead. The farm was not a money-maker, and he hated farming. The only thing he kept was a pair of silver slippers, for they entranced him. In the light, they turned into a fiery, ruby-red color. Aunt Elle also told him that he could transport himself to a magical land by wearing the slippers and wishing himself to this nebulous place. The slippers were far too small to wear, and he didn't believe such nonsense anyway. One night, after drinking in excess, a particularly cheap and poor quality of a Chianti, he tried it. Frank found himself in the middle of a poppy field, staring at a city that seemed entirely made of green crystals. He took one of the crystals and closed his eyes again, wishing himself back home. Emeralds. The green crystals were emeralds. He made several trips like this and became rich. He also discovered streets made of gold bricks. He helped himself to plenty of these as well. When he returned, he found that the gold bricks and the emeralds had been replaced. Frank had no qualms about taking more emeralds and more gold from this place. None at all. Frank Baumgartner had found Oz. The inhabitants of the land that Baumgartner invaded were becoming unhappy with their new neighbor. He had a landing strip built for his private jet. The people thought it was a monstrous steel dragon and fled every time it landed or departed. The same emotions arose when Baumgartner drove his vehicle. To them, it was nothing more than an iron terror roaming through their land. Queen Ozma demanded that the stranger leave. He refused. She had no recourse to his refusal. No one had ever defied the queen before, so she was at a loss as to what to do. They had no police force, for there was no crime. They had no standing army, for they had no enemies. Until now, Baumgartner paid well in lollipops. This became a problem, a huge problem. The economy was turned upside down. and inside out. Munchkins and Winkies, with newfound wealth, invaded Emerald City and bought up desirable plots of land and built houses. Baumgartner built several yellow-bricked roads that led to Emerald City, and the flood of country people to the city was unsustainable. The new royalty had been, just a short time before, farmers and craftsmen. The Lollipop Guild had been decimated by the influx of lollipops from Baumgartner. Inflation ran rampant. And then a recession hit. Everyone felt its effects, and the people of all 4 quadrants of the land found themselves struggling to survive. Baumgartner didn't care. He was rich in America, but here he was a god. He controlled the lands, the supply chains, the very fabric of life. Poverty became the new normal. "We have to do something!" Vaya slammed her fist on the table. The Munchkins looked at her with surprise and consternation. She had never been so demonstrative. Via Sol had always been the epitome of grace and charm. Goru stood up, though it made little difference in his height relative to everyone else. He was short, even for a Munchkin, but he commanded respect. The eldest member of the Lollipop Guild had been Goru for the past 70 years, and his word meant something. "I have a solution, but you aren't going to like it," he said. A quietness overtook the room. If Gora said that it would be displeasing, then it would be very displeasing. The council braced itself. Goru outlined his plan. Everyone was horrified, but they agreed to it. Effie sensed the Munchkin well before he came into sight. She sniffed the air and smelled fear, desperation, sadness. Goru stopped short when he saw Effie. It had been 20 years since she had been banished to the edge of Munchkin land. Although he had voted against the banishment, he still felt a thrill of fear. Effie was dangerous. All her kind were dangerous. What brings the great and powerful Gora to my humble shack? Effie picked up a snake and stroked it gently before putting it back on the ground and giving it a shove with her toe. The snake slithered off into the underbrush, looking for a meal. A stranger from the outer lands. A bad person, Effie. Very bad. "We need your help," Goro said, looking down. He was afraid to meet Effie's eyes. "I have no quarrel with you, Gora. You didn't vote against me when I was banished. But why should I help? I was exiled because of my grandmother." Goro nodded. She was right. She had no reason to help. "But I will," Effie said softly, "because the stranger has something of mine." Goro looked at her, surprised. "You know about the stranger. I may be restricted to the edge of the desert, but I hear things," she said. "Because the animals tell me." Goro believed her. Effie's grandmother understood the animals. "I'll come to the council next week, when it's over. I'll want something in return, though." Goro nodded. He was empowered to agree to almost anything. What? Effie looked at Gora and smiled. It was a beautiful smile, so unlike her grandmother's wicked leer. My grandmother's old house. Goro expected this. He nodded, and then he left as quickly as possible. The edge of the desert frightened him, and Effie frightened him most of all. He thought of a saying he had heard long ago, "Needs must, when the devil drives." He would wonder, years later, who the devil really was. Effie flew above the trees on her umbrella, scanning the countryside. She knew the area well, for she had been raised in Winky country. Her old house looked different, modern and bright. She hated it. A portly man came outside and looked around, hands on hips. Effie's tremendous sight allowed her to see him clearly. He had a mug look on his face. Odd clothes covered his portly frame, and he was smoking a cigar. Effie banked sharply and flew toward the man. He finally spotted her and stared at her in surprise and fear. She saw his eyes widen. He screamed just as her umbrella penetrated his heart. The umbrella settled gently on the ground as Effie stepped off. She strode to the man and took the briefcase. She had what she wanted. She had what belonged to her. "We have to do something," Vaya said miserably. She didn't slam her hand on the table as she had done all those years ago, but the tone of her voice revealed her desperation. Goru and the rest of the council agreed. Effie had been a hero 20 years ago when she killed the giant stranger and everyone else in her grandmother's old house. The land was freed from the bonds of American capitalism and its monstrous ways. Now, however, she was as her grandmother had been, wicked and controlling. The flying monkeys were back, as were the giant white wolves and the huge black bees. They had gotten so used to smallish wolves and gentle honeybees that the new, more dangerous versions were even more frightening than ever. What can we do? We made a deal, and she took advantage. Goru talked quietly, as usual, but his voice was tinged with defeat. He saw no way out. "It's like the old days," he continued, "when her grandmother ruled Winkyland. But worse. Effie seems to have a vendetta against us. So, we're sunk. Back to the way things were in the old days, and no stupid farm girl to bail us out," another member said. "Where did she come from? Kansas? Where the hell is that?" Vaya was willing to travel past the deserts if need be. "Somewhere over the rainbows, Vaya. Somewhere we can't reach." Effie sat in her darkened mansion and smiled, stroking the fur of a wolf and listening to the angry buzzing of the black bees flitting about her abode. She had reclaimed her family power. The witch still remembered the day her mother died. She had been behind a curtain when the incident occurred, watching the events unfold. When the strange girl doused her mother with water, she gasped. Her mother melted in front of her eyes. Effie had never seen such a gruesome sight in her life. But that wasn't the end of the bad news. She had been banished to the edge of the desert, though the council that banished her knew full well that she would, in all probability, die from this. The only member to vote in her favor was Gora. Effie, though, had been taught how to survive by her mother. She flourished. Her hate grew. And then another stranger showed up, and with the magical slippers, her mother's slippers, and the last remaining source of all witchy power. Just a pair of shoes, silver. But they fit her feet perfectly, almost like they were made for her now that she was the only living witch in Oz. She could rule all the lands, not just Winky Land. There was a new ruler of the land, and she wasn't about to forget what the inhabitants had done to her or her mother. Effie scanned the skies for flying houses. It wouldn't do to neglect the lessons from the past. She grabbed her umbrella and took off across the land, flying low and fast, observing her domain. Effie was on her way to Emerald City to depose the queen. She has a date with the point of my umbrella today. I look forward to the smell of royal blood spilled on the streets of Emerald City. My only regret is that she can't melt like my mother did. Effie flew on over poppy fields and verdant landscape. Evil had returned to Oz. The monster they all feared was a woman with silver slippers on her feet and hate in her heart. The queen has an expiration date. Evil has no such restriction. Night shift. It all started one wintry night. I was waiting to cross a busy intersection on Oxford Street in London's West End. My workday had just ended, and it felt good to be out of that stuffy office. I had been feeling warm all day and hoped I wasn't coming down with a cold or flu that regularly permeated the office environment at this time of year. Joining the throngs of people heading for the underground trains on their way home, I breathed in the crisp air that usually had a ruffled chill to every month of January, and was looking forward to getting home, switching on the telly, and putting my feet up for the evening. Whether it was the cold night air invigorating my lungs or just getting away from my desk, I felt a heightened sensation bordering on elation. Even my sense of hearing had become acute to conversations in the crowd around me. More interestingly, my stomach began to rumble like it hadn't eaten for days, but I distinctly remember eating a large portion of steak tartare for lunch, watching the animated green walking figure appear at the traffic light opposite. I stepped onto the road, but something immediately caught my attention. The people crowding around me were glowing. That is, their necks were glowing crimson. Even the ones wearing scarves appeared to be radiantly red, like they had twinkling Christmas lights wrapped around their heads. A sudden downpour of heavy, wet rain brought me back to my senses, which was fortunate for me, as I was about to kiss a strange woman's neck. This surrealistic impulse that I almost acted out panicked me. Never had I been attracted to a woman so much that I felt like blatantly accosting her on a street. I was happily married, for goodness sake, and not interested in other women. The more I searched for a reasonable explanation, the more I broke out in a cold sweat. It had alarmed me to a level of fright and flight, so I rushed headlong down the escalator stairs at Bond Street Station and jumped onto the Jubilee line to take me home. However, it was rush hour, and I found myself stuffed into a train carriage like sardines in a tin. That's when further urges tormented me. I could smell a sweet, metallic pungency all around me, and it was intoxicating, alluring, and simply irresistible. I realized I needed to control myself, because part of me argued it was immoral to feel the strange growing urges building up inside me. So I closed my eyes and chanted an unrecognizable verse in my head in an attempt to distract me from my pulsating desires. It didn't help, because the words I recited only increased a compelling hunger that needed immediate feeding. Feel the hunger deep inside, a tormenting thirst to be denied. When the scent of blood is in the air, eat here, drink there, gorge everywhere, unable to control my urges. I found myself exiting the train 2 stops early at Swiss Cottage. The rain had stopped and left a misty haze dampening the ground. Car headlights cut through the fog, creating halo effects around pedestrians crossing the road, making them look like they were glowing from head to foot. It was best that I could not see clearly. It would speed my passage home without any temptations. Taking a shortcut down an old alleyway that connected to a quicker way home, I hoped to shave several minutes off my hike. The alleyway was poorly lit, with lamp posts approximately 50 meters apart, most of them inoperative from damage done to them. As I picked up my pace, I heard a sound like someone slipping on a wet surface, then a cracking sound like a hard part of them had hit the cement pathway. A yell, followed by an expletive, told me that the person I was descending on had fallen and hurt themselves. "Are you okay, miss?" I genuinely asked on my approach. "I've cut my chin," the young woman stated. "Do you have any Kleenex tissues or paper towels?" It was then that the enticing aroma of freshly released blood wafted under my nose. Gently cupping her chin, I leaned in and "What are you doing?" the policeman demanded to know as he shined his bright flashlight on me. I was frozen in place, my eyes the only moving part darting towards the constable, then darting back at the young woman whose chin I was tightly attached to with my mouth. Logic escaped me, but flippancy did not. Quickly recalling something my mother used to say at the dinner table, I blurted it out with clenched teeth. "I would like to explain, Constable, but my mother always told me to never talk with my mouth full." Either the constable had no sense of humor, or he was tired of dealing with flippant replies to his standard police inquiries. He pulled out his truncheon and began to attack me about my head with his nightstick. One swift rip of his neck with pointy, sharp claws I didn't know existed until that moment caused him to slump to the wet ground in dead weight. Witnessing this unexpected act, the young woman screamed a blood-curdling shriek that sounded like music to my highly acute hearing. Attempting to escape, I counted to 3. Then an impressive light of foot sprint had me overtake her in seconds, where I dispatched her to the same place as that bullying policeman. Needless to say, I was horrified at my involuntary actions and needed to get home as quick as I could. I managed to cover the last mile in 2 minutes, flat. Another surprise that shocked me, because until that moment, any form of exercise I participated in, running was never my best activity. "Hello, darling," my Eloise greeted me as I unlocked the door to the safety of our welcoming abode. "How was your day?" Without a word, I unintelligibly grunted and shook my shoulders before hurrying up the stairs to the bathroom. "You okay?" Eloise called up the stairs. I was too shaken to answer. How could I explain a happening so bizarre and an anomaly so incomprehensible? It was too surreal for words, but remarkably, it had left me tingling with an unexpected surge of excitement. "Don't forget the Fortescues are coming for dinner, darling. They insisted on a weekday. Some money-making opportunity they want to present to us." Freddie Fortescue was always scheming to make an extra buck here and there, since his wealthy, stuck-up parents had practically disowned him for spending all his trust fund on get-rich-quick schemes. He had mentioned this one in passing the last time we got together, but I told him that pyramid schemes only made money for those at the top. It was obvious that saying no to Freddie was like saying no to happiness. So he probably had his wife, Bunty, put pressure on Eloise to allow him to pitch the idea over a Wednesday night dinner tete-a-tete. The very night I seemed to be at a disadvantage in mental faculties. Damp from the evening's events, I sat on the edge of the bathtub and grabbed a towel from the rail, then proceeded to dry my face and hair of the excess blood splashed on me during my outrage. My body trembled at the memory of what I had just done, and a soft, painful cry escaped my lungs. Moments later, the bathroom door swung open, and Eloise rushed in, a look of worried concern on her face. "What's wrong, darling? Are you okay?" "I don't know where to start," I mumbled. "It's okay," Eloise softly reassured me. "Calm yourself." Tears filled my dry eyes. Something horrific had happened to me. I felt like my insides were remapping my DNA. I feel like my body is changing, Elle. Like I'm a teenager again, going through puberty. It's such a strange feeling, bordering on an energizing sensation of euphoria. I'm sweating, but I don't feel hot. Gently caressing my chin until our eyes locked in comforting gazes. Elle pressed the back of her other hand against my forehead. You do feel rather on the cold side, darling. I have done something horrible, Elle. Come on, Eloise requested. A nice glass of red downstairs will set you to rights. You can tell me all about it after you change clothes. Ushering me from behind, Eloise nudged me from the bathroom. I felt both confused and elated at the same time. But how would I be able to explain it to Elle? Snapping me out of my inward thoughts, Elle held up the cravat she wanted me to wear. Then produced the most exquisite red velvet jacket while helping me on with it. It was a tad kitsch, but she has always loved seeing me dressed up in 1970s Hugh Hefner-styled clothing. She said seeing me in a velour way caused her to purr like a kitten, and that it always added a little excitement to the evening. Besides, the Fortescue's sense of fashion always seemed to tease at the edge of tackiness. It would be rude not to indulge our guests on this dark, wet, and atmospheric night. No sooner had Elle dressed me, Freddie and Bunty were ringing our doorbell. As I opened the door to let them in, I decided to put on a brave face and try to act normal. This was helped by Freddie and Bunty gliding into the hallway, dressed in a similar 70s revival fashion. Good company for my velvet jacket. Freddie's wide lapel suit with platform shoes made him look taller than his small stature. But Bunty looked deliciously attractive in a rainbow-striped halter top and brown flared pants. Luckily for her, the faux fox fur coat she wore as she entered our home had kept her cozy and warm in the outside fog of the evening. It was a much-needed distraction from my earlier experience, so I told myself to just get through dinner, then confess all to my loving Eloise. Throughout the evening, conversation from our guests had been jovial, but I remained slightly reserved, still trying to come to grips with my sudden change of character. It wasn't too noticeable, as Freddie took center stage and entertained us with quips and jokes of an era gone by. You know, the borderline racist and sexist one-liners that matched his dress code. Bunty shyly giggled at Freddie's off-color humor, but managed to correct him when he went too far. Eloise had seated me next to Bunty, and opposite us, she sat next to Freddie. Soup was the starter. However, my appetite had escaped me, so I didn't partake in eating any of it. Trying to suppress flashbacks of the evening's earlier slaughter, coupled with my adrenaline level still high, acted as a natural hunger suppressant. Eloise noticed my introverted behavior and flashed a concerned look at me across the dining table, but I smiled and nodded that I was okay. During the main meal, Eloise served up some medium-rare fried steaks with pommes frites that, although smelled enticing, I just played with mine until I became bored. So, topping up everyone's wine glass, I settled into listening to Freddie open his sales pitch on why we should attend his pyramid parties. He explained how getting in early guaranteed us a big payday, and that we could repeat the process multiple times. Illegal as his idea was, it was tempting nonetheless. I was on the verge of agreeing when all my senses suddenly heightened beyond containment. It was as if I could hear Bunty's pulse beating like a drum struck methodically in cadent rhythm. Chillingly, it sent me into a form of stalking mode, instantly attracting my devoted attention, beguiling me with its seducing sound. I soon realized it was the incantation of Bunty's blood being pumped through her soft veins. Studying her pulsating neck closely, I was immediately overcome with the oddest desire to kiss her. So I leaned in toward her and, "Darling," Eloise abruptly demanded my attention. "Where are your manners? We should always feed the guests first." I turned my head sideways to respond to Elle, and was bemused at the expression on Freddie's face. A look of sheer shock and horror stretched across his entire expression. As I removed my face from snuggling into Bunty's neck, she unexpectedly fell face down into her caramel flan that Eloise had served for dessert, staining it blood red with every pumping beat of her open jugular vein. I was flabbergasted at the sight before me. But before I could cry in shock, and more importantly, before Freddie could run screaming from the house, Eloise quickly bit down onto his large-collared, silk-shirted neck, draining him of a large amount of life-giving blood. Not to be upstaged, he too imitated Bunty's reaction and slumped with his nose buried in his dessert. "Before you freak out," Eloise halted my panic. "We need to talk." My gut reaction was to scream. However, the satisfying sensation that coursed through every fiber of my body sat me relaxed back into the comfort of my chair. Everything became clearer. This was to be the new normal, my newly formed ideology argued. What surprised me the most was my Eloise. It was obvious that she was like me, but had been so for a tad bit longer than I. It was also apparent that she was the one responsible for my predicament. "When did you?" I sincerely inquired. "Sunday night, darling," she replied, cutting me off in mid-question. "Why?" "I'm so sorry, my love. I'm selfish, and I couldn't bear the thought of living through eternity without you." Her candor was admirable, and her expression of love for me was so sweet that I immediately forgave her. She did it out of love, I reasoned, with the lucidity of a madman. However, there was still one question remaining to be answered. "Elle, who turned you?" Nigel at the company Christmas party, the one where partners weren't invited? Obviously for a reason, darling. The world needs more vampires, apparently. It's all the rage. Somehow, I had missed that memo at my own place of business. Elle's answer certainly explained the increasing numbers of sicky days my colleagues took before never returning to work. It also explained my wife's sudden rush to buy thick black velvet curtains that she kept drawn during daylight hours. I simply thought blocking out the intermittent English sunshine helped ease her migraines. What created a conundrum is that she chose to convert me without any prior discussion, but I suppose that would have been a difficult topic to broach. Darling, I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that I will live forever. The bad news is you won't, so I need to bite your neck and drain your blood. I may have run for the hills if she had explained it in that manner. However, the way I felt after ripping through bountiful Bunty's porcelain flesh was too intoxicating to argue with any rational thought. I was now a night crawler, a citizen of the undead. My world had changed. It was up to me to live with it and learn to sleep by day, because from here on out, I was going to have to work the night shift, still trying to process events. I didn't hear the front door being broken in, the heavy sets of footsteps piling into the hallway, and the police helicopter hovering above our roof, shining its blinding searchlight beam through the open curtains. I must have been recognized on my mad dash home at the speed of a fast-moving city car, angry shouts ordering the two of us to lay on the floor face down, accompanied guns pointing directly at us. Eloise remained calm, but I was still processing the intrusion and trying like an idiot to protest at the 8 heavily armed members of the CVS, the counter-vampire squad. Gentlemen, I began, couldn't this wait until after dinner? We still haven't opened the port. An over-aggressive policeman, frustrated by my words, hit me in the head with the butt of his assault rifle, but it had no sensory impact on me. He might as well have just blown air in my face. He obviously had not seen what I had done to the last policeman that attacked me. Darling, Eloise softly called. It's time. Time for what, Elle? Time for us to find somewhere else to live. In a speedy blur, resembling life at fast-forward viewing. Eloise swiftly overpowered every member of the vampire squad, beheading each one of them before they could react. Once again, I was shocked at the carnage, but in parallel, oh so proud and in awe of my wonderful Elle. In time, I would most likely possess those unworldly skills, but for now, I remained in a state of marvel at her ability to nullify an overwhelming force that had threatened to overpower us. Bravo, Elle. I congratulated her. my compassion for the dead non-existent, and my grasp of reality rapidly slipping from any semblance of sanity. Quickly grabbing our coats, Elle pulled me by the hand and led me down the hallway and through our broken front door, turning to take a final look at the home we had to immediately vacate. The whir of the hovering helicopter above our house reminded us that time was of the essence. Putting a loving arm around my beloved Elle, I flipped a defiant, juvenile-inspired middle finger up at the pilot, then guided Elle out into the foggy night. "What now, Jeremy?" Elle sentimentally asked as we fled at top speed to avoid the chopper's searchlight. "Let's eat first," I replied. "I'm starving." Straitjacket. Chrissy. Yates pocketed the last of her equipment and squinted her eyes, the way a predator is in on its prey. "Oh, come on," she thought, her nervous gaze darting between her watch and the sanatorium door. Impatient, she stood herself at the entrance, which was one of corrugated iron. It was an almost baleful presence, and one that only chose to admit the most intrepid of investigators. Beware ye who enter. Paranormal investigation was no hobby of Chrissy's. It wasn't something she did for one Friday evening's amusement. It was her life, much to the annoyance of her fiancé, Todd. "Why can't you do something normal?" he pleaded. "Like book club?" Chrissy scoffed at that, quietly terrified at how suburban Todd was becoming. She found it baffling how her and Todd, once throwing darts at a world map to see where they would travel, could now only cite a scoot around in the Kroger parking lot as the most adventurous thing they had done together. They were now completely different, on a cellular level. Fundamentally, Chrissy was a rebel. She was a free spirit, a girl with twigs and berries in her hair, a girl who cried whenever you killed a ladybug by accident. But here, she had lost her iridescent shell and become a scrawny ribbon of beige, a sculpture of suburbia-shaped pulp. She had failed, resolutely, to rebel in the big ways, which is why she found herself always trying to hold her own in the small ways. "You're late," Chrissy spat at her soon-to-be husband, tapping her watch. "Good evening to you too, Chris." Todd pecked Chrissy on the cheek. Here, they looked comically incongruous. Chrissy, forever undertaking these new challenges with relish, and Todd breathless after the hour-long walk from their apartment. "Let's just get this over with, shall we?" said Todd, with a smirk on his face. "Where's Milo? Didn't you get his message? He can't come." "What is that grin for?" "You know how much this means to me, Todd." "I know," Todd reassured her, taking her hand. "I know." Never had swapping opinions about a chick lit with a group of soccer moms over a bottle of cheap sorority rosé looked so frightening to Chrissy. "Good," she announced loudly, betraying a sudden strength of character beneath her sallow skin. "Let's do this." Almost immediately, Chrissy produced a flashlight. Its crisp, cylindrical beam, throwing sharp shafts of light over the dripping gloom, and a room that was now a rich repository of the past. A place that was once a refuge for any woman, its intake striding anyone from a widow with night terrors to a sexual deviant denouncing her family's Catholic faith. Chrissy read that at its peak, the sanatorium was home to up to 200 people. It was a number Chrissy almost found comforting. These women, united in their combined will to escape, now seemed more powerful than ever. "Are you sure we should be doing this, Chrissy?" asked Todd, trailing his fiancée. "What do you mean?" "We can do what we want." "No, but I mean, should you be doing this?" "I don't want to talk about that now." "I know, but..." "Shh! What was that?" The only sounds available to their naked ears were the scratch of their footfalls against the frost-crusted twigs and the steady plip of water, the hallmarks of any B movie. The noise Chrissy managed to hear presented itself again, something anyone else would put down to the movement of a rat. "Did you hear that?" When Todd shook his head, Chrissy looked back and, aided by the dwindling light of her pathetic torch, saw a battery of glazed leporine eyes. "Oh my God, Milo!" Chrissy exhales, her breath white with frost. "What are you doing here? I thought I'd make a last-minute appearance." Milo, Todd's longest and closest friend, said, "Keep you on your toes. Did you know about this?" Chrissy spat to Todd, her cheeks surrendering any of their remaining color. "Why are we here again?" Milo asked, comically unprepared, wearing just a shirt and jeans. Todd shrugged his shoulders. "Ask her. She wanted to come here. She must have told you a reason." "There is no reason, Milo. You know this." "Actually, there is a reason," Chrissy corrects Todd. "If you must know, my mother was here." "Your mother?" "Chrissy." "What?" Todd asked, confused. "You heard me. Just before the place shut down, she was admitted here." "You never told me." "I don't think you ever asked, Todd." Shall we move on? More determined than she had ever been, Chrissy stalked deeper into the darkness. "So why was your mother here?" Milo asked, closely following Chrissy. "Milo!" "No, it's fine, Todd," replied Chrissy, grateful for the question. "I don't know exactly how she came to be here. She didn't tell me. But when her dad died, her mom married again, and he started sexually assaulting her, raping her." "Oh, shit." "Yeah. And if that wasn't enough, she was abused by her own husband, my dad. But no one believed her. That would drive anyone into the loony bin." "Chris, do you really think this is a good idea? Maybe we should go home," Todd advised. "No, Todd. If you want to go home, that's fine. I'm staying." Chrissy's determination seemed almost thunderous in this confined space. It was a quality she inherited from her mother, a woman who the naysayers tried to force her into the identikit mold of the abused woman you might expect to see plastered on your TV screens and newspapers, blue and bloody beside the dishwasher. Instead, She was a born-again freedom fighter who learned her life lessons the hard way, like an up yours to a traditional fable. It was no wonder that Chrissy had such a difficult childhood. But she, much like her mother, refused to be packaged as a woman, fighting on the behalf of anyone who had ever been brutalized, anyone worn threadbare by abuse, anyone still haunted by the nightmares. Sharp, serrated pinpricks of terror, a spider-webbed mirror, a shard of glass, a calloused palm, the girl who used to throw bricks at street lamps and through store windows for nothing but her own amusement, who used to grieve as easily with laxatives as with a bottle of wine, and who used to hide the ladder of cuts on her arm, was no longer that little girl. Chrissy wasn't scared anymore. She had conquered her fear. She wanted to talk about her past, even if Todd didn't want her to. Todd liked to sugarcoat things and cower behind the happy illusion that things were better than they actually were. He wouldn't allow them to tackle issues head-on. Say one of their golfing friends, clad in one of those Argyle sweaters, mid-slurp of Long Island iced tea, mid-bite of a crustless cucumber sandwich, brought it up. Todd would swat it away and insist that it was only temporary. If Chrissy wanted to talk about something as mundane as what they were having for dinner, that would be fine. But if she wanted to talk about how she came to be in a psychiatric hospital when she should have been spending her gap year in Phuket like any other student, then that would, of course, be off limits, which was why she had to come here, to this very hospital. "Oh my God, what is this place?" Milo asked, weirdly curious. "This," Chrissy replied, happy to answer, "was where they did the whole electroshock therapy thing." Milo shared a confused look with Todd. "How do you know that?" Chrissy smiled wryly. "I just do." Chrissy couldn't help imagining her mother in this room, putting her legs in stirrups and placing herself at the mercy of a masochistic doctor. "We are going to scour it out of you," he would spit, forcing a wet sponge between her lips. He would have her return a vegetable, someone who squeezes a nurse's hand to tell them you're still alive, someone who slurps liquidized food through a straw and shits in a bucket. With renewed determination, Chrissy crouched down to the floor, where it was dark and slippery, strewn with machine parts and moldy baby clothes. She reached into her backpack and produced a tumbler, a pen, and a piece of paper. "What are you doing?" Todd asked, his eyes following his partner's movements. "I wasn't planning on doing it here," Chrissy said, frustrated. "But if you would just work with me, then maybe we could—" "No," Todd objected immediately. "If you're doing what I think you're doing, then I'm out." "Oh, come on, Todd." Milo was surprisingly game. "Don't be such a buzzkill. Last time I did it," Chrissy resumed, "I could hear my mother's screams. You know, I could really talk to her." Todd shook his head defiantly. "No, I'm not doing this." Chrissy switches off her torch and holds aloft a pack of candles. Before striking a match, and lighting them. The feeble flames curl and sway and lick the dusty air. "Are we ready?" Chrissy asked, bathed in an ombre of red and black. Milo gestured to Todd to sit down. Finally, Todd acquiesced, taking them both by the hand so Chrissy could commence. "Great. Thanks, Todd. That means a lot." Chrissy began by setting an upturned tumbler on the paper, before reaching into her jean pocket for the yellowed, crumpled remains of a photo of her mother and her crooked smile. A smile that, once upon a time, seemed to generate its own light. One that lit up everything around her. "Don't break the circle," Chrissy instructed the two men. "Whatever you do, do not break the circle." "Okay," Milo said, his voice trembling slightly. "Don't worry," Chrissy said warmly, forcing a note of levity, noticing that his voice had ascended an octave. "That's exactly what I was like when I first tried it." Todd and Milo looked at one another once again, almost in awe at Chrissy's newfound pastime. "Mom," Chrissy said, looking upwards, as though to some external force. "If the answer is yes, please slide the glass to the right. And if the answer is no, please slide the glass to the left. Okay? Mom, are you with us?" All eyes swiveled to the glass. Chrissy pursed her lips in nervous anticipation before looking up again, only a few moments later, to see the glass moving in Todd's direction to the right, its rim scraping across the floor. "Hiya, Mom." "Oh my God." Milo tried to retract his hand. "How did you—" "Shh." The glass moved back to the center. "Mom, I'm gonna ask you some questions, all right? How are you doing this?" Milo demanded. Todd silenced him with the whites of his eyes. "Mom?" Chrissy called out, trying to re-establish the connection. "Mom, are you okay?" The tumbler moved to the right again. Chrissy smiled. Milo turned to Todd, who he thought would be on his side at this point, given this was his first time as well. But he too was riveted to his spot. "Joe, Mom, if you're still there, could you please write something for us? On this pen and paper?" Chrissy indicated the pen and paper in the center. The glass stirred yet again. "Ting, ting. That's amazing, Mom. What would you like to tell us?" The ballpoint was picked up and floated in mid-air before starting to glide across the page, leaving in its wake a long and inky sentence. "Tell them what they did to me, Chrissy. Tell them what they did," as a draft, wispy as a trail of jet exhaust, wafted across the room. All withering eyes, in unconscious tandem, moved in Chrissy's direction. The glass shattered. The whole room descended into a sudden flurry of accusations, and finally, the circle broke apart. "Jesus Christ!" Milo shouted, mopping his forehead with the back of his hand, trying to make sense of everything. "What just—" "I don't know," Todd answers, looking to Chrissy. I don't know." Chrissy's lips folded into a smile. "I told you it worked." "No." Milo stood back, his eyes wide with fear. That is some nasty voodoo shit. Come on, Todd. She's crazy. Crazy? Chrissy said, feeling the cold fury hoard in her chest. You think I'm crazy? Seeking the exit, Milo ran headlong into the darkness, the scrape of his footfalls dissolving with his screams. He won't get very far without a flashlight, Chrissy remarked. He's right, Todd said, jerking to his feet. You are crazy. What? I don't know what's happened to you in these past few days, and I don't really care. But this has got to stop, Chris. It's this obsession. It's not normal. You don't think I'm normal? Do you understand what I'm saying? Todd screamed, his throat taut with desperation. I mean, do you really understand what I'm saying? This, he continued, grabbing her jaw, spittle landing on his cheek as he enunciated each word, is not normal. Go then. I don't need you anymore. My mom's here. Oh, for fuck's sake. Your mother isn't here. Chrissy so desperately wanted to prove her fiancé wrong. Oh, really? Chrissy could only sit and watch as the man she loved doubled back and wailed in pain, falling to the ground with a terrific thud. He reached for his foot, as though to favor his leg, much like a wounded animal. What the fuck? Todd tweaked his trouser leg to reveal a 3-pronged scratch on the back of his leg. Did that hurt? She asked, savoring this moment. Something changed in Todd's expression. His surroundings suddenly felt hazy and distant, as though on the other side of a glass wall. You're insane, Chrissy, he said, struggling to his feet, running for the exit. You're insane. This was Chrissy's cue to look back in her bag and find her EMF meter, holding it out in front of her. It made a distinct clicking noise, its crackle like the one that heralded the beginning of a Western or a grainy VHS tape. Mom, he's gone, Chrissy said, checking Todd had definitely left. It's just us now, I promise you. Just us. Chrissy sank to the ground and tried to keep an absolute silence, so that all could be heard was the solitary metronome of her EMF meter. I'm here now, Mom. I'm here. Click, click, click. Social proof. Ethan reoriented his phone and pushed his stocking cap back to reveal more of his hair before offering his audience a 2-fingered peace sign. Hey, guys. What's up? Aiden raked Ethan's hand. Dude, what the hell? What's gotten into you? Sam chortled, recording both of them on his phone through a cloud of steamy breath. Scared? No, Aiden barked, glaring apprehensively into Sam's camera. I'm black, moron. Shit like this gets a brother killed. In response to Aiden's misgivings, heart, laughing, and smiling emojis floated up Aiden's image on Sam's screen. Feeling smug, Sam showed Aiden the immediate, real-time results. Aiden rolled his eyes. Whatever, fool. They ain't black. Ethan resumed a filming position with a sarcastic smile, framing the tall fence behind him in the background. Don't worry, Aiden, buddy. We'll be good and gone before anybody notices. Come on, guys. Let's go. Let's go. Sam impatiently gestured to the shadowy mansion. Pressing on, Sam directed his mobile to the naked, claw-like limbs of bare trees that lined the drive, reaching over their heads. "It don't look like anybody's been here lately, since the 60s, Aiden said, jutting his hands into his pockets and hunching his shoulders. Trespassing aside, something felt eerie about the property. He felt eyes crawling all over him. Been shuttered ever since. It was foreclosed on by the bank after Thaddeus's grandson died. The house is old, protected by some kinda historical preservation law. They wanted to put a Walmart here, but couldn't. It can't be knocked down. Our resident bookworm and brown noser, ladies and gentlemen," Ethan said, capturing him and Aiden in the shot and bowing to his camera. "Yeah, I read, okay?" Aiden said, shoving Ethan away. "This is it, peeps," Sam said, angling his phone to take a wide shot of the property. "Thornbrook Manor," Ethan interrupted Sam to draw a dramatic, wide-eyed slash across his throat with his finger. "The third sorcerer." Annoyed, Aiden glanced side-eyed at Sam's phone and shrugged, speaking directly to Sam's followers. "It's where the geocache told us to go next." "Abhorrent ground," Sam whispered ominously, reciting a phrase they found written in the cache. Flipping the phone's camera to face him, his face was uplit in the darkness. "WTF? What's that even mean?" Built in the 1860s outside of Seattle, the Thornbrook property was considered an architectural gem of Victorian elegance and grandeur. Dilapidated, weathered, and crumbled, its glamorous splendor, however, was lost to the past. Situated on a lush estate, the mansion boasted a commanding presence with a towering 3-story roofline, with 4 chimneys and 2 pointed spires. Its exterior facade was crafted with intricate details, replete with ornate carvings of strange and fanciful beasts, sturdy stone pillars, and delicate trimmings that lent the structure an artistic flair. Its architect was both an engineer and an artist. Its front doors were made of rich mahogany and intricately carved, yet spray painted with urban gang tags. "What is that?" Sam said. He focused his camera on a carving along the structure's foundation. It had a rounded body with taloned hands, a sloping ape-like brow, and an angry expression bearing menacing, jagged teeth, yet had stone wings like a bird. It looked tethered to the building by a black iron chain. That's a water drain," Aiden replied. "Water comes down the chain into the monkey's skull, spilling out the mouth." "Ugh," Sam groaned, zooming in on it. "That's crazy. What kind of acid were these guys on?" "Opium," Aiden clarified with a nod, thinking, then added, leaning into Sam's camera, "That or absinthe, herbs, sugar, ice, wood alcohol, big-ass psychedelic effects brought on from consuming thujone, a compound." Look!" Ethan interrupted, cutting Aiden off, holding his own phone over his head as they approached a ruined reflecting pool in an overgrown garden sanctuary. Surrounded by a wrought iron fence, the pool's still black surface reflected the sky's cold, starry void. "There's the statue," Adis rumbled into Sam's camera. Friendly heart emojis raced up the side of his face. "Yeah, well, if you're curious and want to know more, DM me." "Come on, Brainiac," Sam scolded, slapping Aiden on his shoulder. Sam turned his camera's flash away from the monkey creature to send it receding into the darkness. Cautiously entering the gate, they circled the pool to step through an overgrowth of thorny black bushes with serrated, tar-colored leaves. A marble statue of a Victorian gentleman, leaning heavily on a cane, loomed over the pool's edge. Soiled by centuries of grime and vigorous splotches of mold, thorny brambles climbed its legs and torso. "Dr. Thaddeus Parlow," Aiden whispered, scanning through Wikipedia articles on his device. He passed the links on to the audience through social media. Sam zoomed in on Parlow's vandalized head. Chiseled away, it looked as if it were mauled. Chunks of marble were gouged from Parlow's face. Hundreds of shocked and gasping emojis went scrolling by. Sam zoomed back, panned, and held his phone horizontally to keep Ethan and the statue in the frame. "We've got more than 1,600 viewers, man. Play it," chided Ethan's followers. Little blue bubbles of text went floating by. Okay, I'm going to play it. Just hang on," Ethan promised his followers before turning his phone around to navigate its settings. Ethan, I don't think..." Aiden's eyes trailed from his phone to the water. Sam could barely contain himself and removed his cap. He fixed his phone on Ethan. "Man, this is going to be so great," reflected upon the smooth black surface of the pool. Aiden saw a sharp, vivid reflection of the Milky Way. However, looking up, ambient light from the city obscured the night sky, and it was cloudy, overcast, a typical Seattle night. Puzzled, Aiden absently asked, Ethan?" Closing on Sam, Ethan held up his phone up to Sam's and pressed play to stream the video. A cheesy, AI-generated black and white image of a man with the head of an octopus appeared, followed by a grainy, scratchy recording, as if sampled from a wax cylinder. "Fahanglui magulwanaf Cthulhu ralya wagahanagul fetaran," recited the octopus man in a low, spectral voice. Thousands of emojis raced up Sam's display, and his follower count skyrocketed. Elated, Sam pumped the air, shouting, Yeah, Wuganagel ftagan, fuckers, bring it on," Ethan mocked with a sarcastic sneer and a crude, offensive gesture into Sam's camera. "Aya, ia, Cthulhu ftagn, to drill ngkthikri dagon," the recording concluded, leaving only a still, uncomfortable silence. Seeing the statue's mutilated head reflected in the pool of dreamy starlight, Aiden backed away to glance at Thaddeus, and then back at the water. The statue's angle against the surface was all wrong. How's that possible? He breathed, replaying the video on his phone. Ethan shook his mobile at Sam and shouted, "That's it! The third Sorcerer's Challenge! Woo! Look!" Sam exclaimed, holding out his phone. A Bitcoin balance was leaping ahead in hundreds of increments. "We won, man. Where's all of that shit coming from?" Ethan said, peering at Sam's phone. Sam turned the phone toward him and manipulated its settings. "Dunno. Some guy in Amsterdam." Ethan squinted. "Amsterdam? Where's that?" "Who cares?" Sam exclaimed. "We're gonna be rich." "Sam," Aiden pleaded, pointing to the pool and gripping Sam's jacket by the sleeve. "Something's wrong." Sam jerked his arm back. "Bro, what the?" Following Aiden's hand, Sam saw the impossibly bright, brilliant universe and the crisp reflection of Thaddeus Parlow's statue, except it wore a ghostly, bearded face. Before Sam could react, Ethan, his back to the pool, held his phone contemptuously under the statue's chin to replay the video. Sam returned his phone to a recording position. "Ia, Cthulhu Vahtagn, to drill Ankhthakakri Dagon," repeated the grainy octopus man. Sam and Aiden cried out, just as a massive blue and green scaled tentacle burst from the reflecting pool, gripped Ethan's leg, then dragged him screaming into the water. The light from Ethan's submerged phone sank into the pool's depths and disappeared. "Jesus fuck!" Aiden shouted, throwing himself from the side of the pool against the iron fence. Sam's phone, his thousands of followers witnessing the entire event, burst into a flurry of shocked, worried, and sad emojis. From the shadows, the chained monkeys squatting along the manor's cornerstones grinned, howling in terror. Aiden grabbed Sam to bolt for the iron gate. But as they ran, the thick, thorny, weedy brambles snagged their jeans and shot out to wrap around their legs. Tripped, Sam fell, sending his phone skittering across the cobblestone surrounding the pool. "Sam!" Aiden cried, reaching back for him, only to find Sam's body ensnared in the grips of the wicked Flora, pinned against the fence's bars. Sam pleaded, extending his arm to Aiden. "Help! Help!" Tugging, the thorns ripped into Aiden's skin and tore at his legs and ankles. He could feel the lacerations, the blood saturating his jeans. Aiden struggled and tried to get closer to Sam, only to find tendrils of strangling, grinding vines cutting into Sam's throat. His eyes bulged and bled, and he choked on a protruding mouthful of black leaves. It began to rain. Scared, senseless, Aiden scrambled backward to lunge for the iron gate. Shut tight by the snaking weeds, it barely budged. Aiden glanced behind him in horror. The statue of Dr. Thaddeus Parlow remained as it was, and always had been, except its vivid, colorful reflection was a ghastly monster with a translucent nest of writhing tentacles waving from its jaw. The pool was still, unmoving, as if coated in a layer of sheer, translucent ice. The raindrops did not affect its surface. The pool was disorienting, mesmerizing, spinning. It was as if the whole of the universe lay open at Dr. Parlow's feet. "Absinthe, my ass," Aiden shouted, bracing his foot against an iron post to pull at the gate with all of his weight to rip it free of the twisting vines. Fleeing from the sanctuary, a wind bellowed from the chimneys, blowing from inside the mansion with a terrifying roar. Slipping on the mud, his heart pounding, lungs burning, Aiden ran with everything he had down the drive and scaled the fence. And without even a second glance, he sprinted away, leaving his friends forever at Thornbrook Manor. Glowing in the darkness, the video of the octopus man replayed on a loop, while a mass of emojis, check-in waves, Bitcoin balances, and DM requests flooded Sam's phone, before a green tentacle reached out from the water, cupped it, and slowly slid it into the pool.